Hello and welcome to the Strength Students podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Nick Scopoletti.
I'm Steve Carty, your other co-host.
Today, our guest, I'm excited. It's a friend of ours, Pete Pulaski. We're here today at Pulaski Strength. What's up, dude?
What's going on, guys? How are you?
We're
Good to
doing
see you, brother.
very well.
Nice to see you. Nice gingerish beard.
Yeah.
Not as good as mine, though.
Make sure you
but
get close to that mic, Pete. Put your mouth right on it.
We're just gonna get
Right
in there.
there. Grip it. Kung Fu
And
grip
rip
it.
Yeah.
So we're at Pulaski Strength here inside the Wonderland of Ice in Bridgeport. We're literally...
You got a dope gym here, bro.
Yeah, we're looking at an ice rink. We're just on the bottom floor. There's upstairs. They got turf. What else you got? Outside, you got turf, too?
We got a little bit of turf outside, so we took whatever was left over from upstairs. We put it outside, so kids can just get outside, foam roll.
Yeah.
Enjoy the sun.
Yeah,
we don't have any windows here, so if you're trying to experience the day, you need to go outside.
Yeah. Sorry, no windows.
Yeah, no, sorry.
You have to pay extra.
This
for
is
that.
jail.
So today we're going to talk about predominantly training athletes. Pete trains a lot of teams, a lot of hockey players, especially because there's a fucking ice rink right there. So I don't know if that's
there is.
I don't know if that's a giveaway or
They got
not.
free skate going on right now.
Yeah.
Fucking Michael McDonald just blasting.
It's the
Fucking
greatest
good
thing
shit.
ever. It's basically pay money to fall and break your ass.
That sounds fucking great. Sounds
Hey.
like a club I know of, too.
Oh, the Blue
Hey, now.
Oyster.
Oh.
Is that a real
There
club?
he is.
Is that a real
No,
club?
that was from a movie. but-
Okay, all right. All right, so, Pete, tell us about you. Tell us your background in strength and conditioning, how you got into training, lifting weights, that whole deal.
So basically, strength conditioning has kind of just been part of my life since I was like a kid. Grew up playing hockey, baseball, got into football in high school. Basically, it came from being that kid that saw Arnold and, Sly Stallone and was like, dude, I want the biggest muscles ever. Haven't quite accomplished that yet, but we're going to get there. But, I remember as a kid just going and watching, we had Strongman. ESPN was like,
Yes.
late night.
That was so
like,
great, yeah.
You had all the
yeah.
greatest people of the world, like
Yeah.
Sven Carlson, all these guys, like lifting crap over their head. And I was
Lifting
like,
fucking ice cream trucks up over their heads and
they
shit.
were like, you know what? Let's run really, really fast and knock this car over. I was like, oh my God.
I found my
this is a
calling.
sport? People are getting paid for this?
and then they were like, Viking power. I'm like, they're Vikings? Like, this is the coolest thing ever.
They were
So,
extinct.
so I was like, all right, like, let me see where this goes as I get older. And what was funny was we were actually looking at old albums a few weeks ago, and my brothers were like, going through, and I'm like, looking there, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I actually have all these kids in a group in a giant line, and I'm like putting them through stretches. I was like, I was a strength coach before I knew I was a strength.
How old were you in these
I was
photos?
literally like 11 years old. I was the fattest kid ever, so please, no one should have listened to me.
That's
But
fucking great.
It was hysterical. I'm all like doing like calisthenics. I'm like, wow, I guess I was meant for this.
Right.
So as I got older, I basically was like, I just dove right into it. I was like the meathead kid in high school, just like 5:30 lift, like get to the like shower in school, like just go crazy. I had the key. It was something special to be honest.
Did you have a golf cart, too?
I might have. My dad is a golf pro, so yes, I played lots of golf. But so yeah, like as I continued to go on, I played, football in high school, and I did very, very well. I had a great career, and I played hockey. We actually started the hockey program at our local high school, St. Joe's in Trumbull, and then I went on to play college football, and I played baseball, and it was exciting times. And when I was in college, I was like, what do football players do? You lift weights.
Right, yeah.
So I was like, how can I make this work? How can I lift more weights during this time? I was like, like exercise science. I'm like, there's nothing that is going to be better than teaching other people what you love to do.
Right.
But at that time, I happened to be 300 pounds. So I was like, there's
Like a sloppy 300? Or like
I was very obese. Like I was on
You
this.
were a lineman, though. I mean,
I was a defensive tackle, and then I moved to the offensive line. And my coach was like, "Hey, dude, do me a favor, put some weight on."
I already know where this combo's going.
And I was like, "Okay, I could do that." So my roommate was 6'6", about 360 pounds.
Oh,
He's a big boy,
That's fucking huge.
and I was like, 270. So after hearing that one, I'm like, this is a free license to eat whatever I want right now. So I basically went to the cafeteria and ate everything. I mean, literally, I was 3-4 plates. I'm like, you know what? let's do this.
Fuck.
But I'm watching strongmen on, YouTube, because YouTube was new at the time. This is like mind blown.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy crap, you get nonstop videos.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, how many calories are they eating? Because they lift trucks. They're like 10,000 calories. I'm like, I'm gonna mimic that.
Oh, did you ever hit 10,000?
Oh, easy. And I came back from winter break. Now this is a 2-month span. I was 301 pounds.
Damn. Going from
31
what'd you say you were?
pounds in
About
2 months.
275 pounds to
Damn,
300 in 2 months.
20-some pounds.
And this is all just savaging crazy meals and
This
shit,
is
or?
basically 4 protein shakes a day,
Yeah, I got
2
you.
breakfasts, 2 lunches, 2 dinners, and a massive deli sandwich before I went to bed, and no sleep. Wow. Ever, because I was always eating.
And 14 heart attacks.
Yes, I think I had a few. I'm actually dead. But yeah, so, after that, one year I was like, you know what? This is disgusting. I was going out to, practice one day, and, we're a Division I program. You need to be in shape. And I bend over to tie my cleats, and I'm like, I go to my roommate, I go, dude, I feel like I'm going to die. Like, he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I need to go nap. Like, I cannot breathe right now. He's like, Are you serious? I'm like, no, dude, like, leave me here for a minute. And I was like, that was like that come to Jesus moment where you're like, what the fuck is happening right now?
What's the point of all this?
What, like, am I going to the NFL?
I was just about to
I'm
say.
6'1.5", and I'm very white. So I'm not going as, anything other than maybe like the holder. Maybe.
Well, plus clearly for your body, holding on to 300 pounds, which is a minimum in the NFL, is not functional.
No,
for you.
it was unrealistic.
There's dudes in the NFL who are 300 pounds, but they can still move and function. For you can't even tie your fucking shoes at 300 pounds.
No, it was disgusting, man. It was so bad. I was like, what are we going to do? So I went on this quest. I had changed my major to exercise science. I started learning about how the body worked, what, calories were good, what calories weren't. So I said, I learned this cool concept. It's called keto. Let me try it, And my roommate and I had a bet. We were like, dude, let's get, beach ready. 300 pounds beach ready, yeah, right. But I was like, okay, let me try it. So I ended up doing keto for like 2-3 weeks.
That's crazy.
I lost 20 pounds of basically water.
Yeah.
Instantly. It was crazy.
At that point, from 10,000 of shit to like, I'm just going to cut out all the carbs.
Literally was eating like 1,700 calories.
1,700, you
Yeah.
said?
I didn't even know. I was like, oh, well, I can't really eat anything, so I'm just going to eat chicken breast all day and canned tuna. I started losing weight. Within 11 months, I lost 97 pounds.
Oh, my God.
Wow, dude. That's fucked.
Fuck.
So this weight gain and loss was in a span of...
So I graduated high school at about 265.
Mm-hmm.
A year and a half later, I was 300. And then within 3 years, I was 197 and a half pounds.
Yo, that's crazy.
And I was like, I look like I got liberated from Auschwitz. It was,
But even the physiological change, like, dude, your body was like, all right, I don't know who's running this ship, but we got to fire his ass.
that my body.
Which way are we going?
Yeah, it was like, what is going on? And I
Holy
remember
shit.
I became compulsed. It was an addiction. Like most people, blow a few lines and do that on the weekends.
Most people do that, right?
Yeah. Depends on what circle you're in.
That's an average, normal, acceptable thing, right? You're right.
Very true. But so I was like, I'm going to dedicate my entire life to this. And I was doing football practice, which, as we all know, is very strenuous activity.
Yeah.
And I'm eating zero food.
Yeah, for real.
I would do an hour and a half of cardio, because what burns more calories than cardio, which is completely crap, as we know.
Right.
But
now,
I was like, you know what? Let's do this. Then I was like, okay, what else can I do to be crazy?
Right.
Let's go in the sauna. So I'd go in the
Oh my
sauna
God,
for a half
Pete.
hour. So basically 6 hours a day was focused to weight loss. And that there is what launched me into my career now.
Okay.
So I ended up going from there. I was like, you know what? Let's try something even more crazy, because I can't lift cars anymore because I'm a skinny man.
Right.
Let's do bodybuilding. I was like, what a great idea. So let's even make this even worse.
It looks, bodybuilding is like a good idea. When you see it, you're like, oh, you just get to be ripped and tan and on stage, and you don't actually know what it takes to get there.
I was like, these guys are so big. Let me try this. And I was like, coming from, like I said earlier, with the Arnold and the Sly Stallone and, Jean-Claude Van Damme, like all these guys we idolized, growing up. It's like, I want to look like that. So theoretically, I got to do bodybuilding if I'm going to look like that. Mm-hmm. So then I went on another quest. I said, you know what? Let's do this. Meanwhile, I'd give myself scurvy, as any of you know, is a lack of vitamin C, and my teeth almost fell out of my head. But that's a story for another day.
You just abused the shit out of your body. Your body was just like, all right, man.
My body hates me.
Give up.
I'm going to be dead at 40, so it's all right. But I decided, I was like, you know what? Let's do this.
Right.
And being a competitor in bodybuilding, the hours and hours and hours and hours of cardio and exercise that it took. But I ended up competing my super senior year because who doesn't go to college for 5 years? And
I did.
You got to have fun twice.
Right.
So I ended up competing and I did relatively well. I mean, I didn't place anywhere near the top, but I had taken something that looked like crap and turned it into something pretty dang good. Right. And then I ended up taking that on the road for another 2-3 years, and I competed in another show, and it was fun. It was a good experience, but all throughout that time, I was learning more and more about strength conditioning and personal training and writing diets and programming. And I started reading all these different people and, learning from different people. And I ended up during that time going to Yale. And, I was like, okay, well, what can I do here? And they were like, you know what? We have this internship. Like, you can come and basically be an intern strength coach. We're going to give you a bunch of teams, and it's called the trial by fire. Like, you're going to just get these teams, and if you stink, then we're going to get rid of you. I was like, oh, wonderful. Let's do it. So I ended up having 7 teams my 5th year in college at Yale University.
Shit.
And they were like, do some programming. Figure it out. And I was like, this is awesome because it got you to just learn how to adapt to all these different types of people. It's like, everyone's different and all this, and how to use a group setting. And I mean, our gym, Yale's gym is huge.
Right.
But where I was in a basement of a field house. It was 10 times smaller than this. It was one room with 2 squat racks and a half a rack of dumbbells and a bunch of these squat racks that are the adjustable ones. They were like, make it happen. So we have lacrosse, we have men's and women's soccer, we have cross country, we have tennis, both men and women's. We have, anybody else who decided to come down, and you're like, yeah, go. So
just you alone?
Just me alone. We would I would have a baseline. Our person in charge would be like, hey, here's a guideline. So you don't kill everybody.
Right.
But go for it. If you want to adapt and make things, your own, do what it takes. Get it done. Mm-hmm. And I learned the most out of that experience. I learned what it took to be a collegiate strength conditioning coach and be relatively well at doing so that I can further my career.
Right.
And, the head guy at the time, his name was Emil Johnson, and he was phenomenal. He'd been a friend of mine for a long time. And he was like, dude, you just keep crushing it. Just go. And we would talk endlessly about, what program's best. And we'd be throwing out stuff like you guys, West Side Barbell. And,
right.
All this stuff. And, it was a little bit before the whole CrossFit craze, back in 09, 10, the CrossFit was
before it was a big thing.
Yeah, CrossFit was still there was a game in a valley. It was just oh, we're going to do a bunch of stuff
in
a valley.
It was Dave Castro's his parents' ranch.
Yeah, it was literally Dave Castro's family's ranch.
Yeah, I had saw the earliest one. He was just let's do some crazy crap out here.
Yeah.
So after the Yale experience, I was I wasn't quite sure what I still wanted to do. I mean, I loved strength conditioning, and I was like, I need a real job. I need a big boy job. So I was like, okay. So I'd been working at Yale continuously, in a different department. And I was like, oh, man, I think I'm going to be a cop. I'll be a cop. This will be great. Carry a gun, be like a RoboCop, take down some criminals, be like, yeah. No. And then I realized you can't enforce the rules for anything.
Right.
I'm just too laid back.
Yeah.
I'd be like,
same, dude.
I'd be like, that was wrong. You shouldn't have done that.
Like next time, don't do that.
I could never. I was talking to a friend of mine who was a cop, and I told him like if someone was just like, if I'm chilling and someone like rolls through a stop sign, I won't care. Like, oh my God, you got to pull them over, especially in our town, Monroe. You got nothing else to do. So like they'll pull you over, and you're just like, oh, man, like, why is this such a big deal? Like, there's no one here. There's no shot of me hitting anyone, not even an animal.
Absolutely not. In Monroe, there is nothing. There's not even lights.
Population's mostly deer.
Yes, actually,
save the deer, man. Save them.
Advocate for the deer.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was. I was like, you know what? I would not have the skill. I wouldn't be good at it. So I was like, why do something that ultimately you're just not gonna really care about? It's just a paycheck.
Yeah, word.
So I ended up going to be a personal trainer, where I met you wonderful people. And, at a well-known fitness club at the time. Mm-hmm. And I started doing personal training. And, within relatively short period of time, I was doing very well. And I was like, okay, it gave me that confidence that I had been lacking a little bit in, to be like, I could do this on my own. This is pretty awesome.
Right.
People actually listen to me, and they get results.
Yeah.
And it's doing what you like to do. And I'd continue to lift, and I was still competing at the time. So it was nice. I'm in a Globo gym. I'm like, yeah, all right, let's do this, So then after that, I ended up it got boring. It was like, how many days can you just kind of do repetitive things? It's like, how many people are you going to, same goals, same, I want to lose 25 pounds, but I don't want to work that hard. Okay. Well, that's, everyone's different. So I'm like, I gotta get the hell out of here.
Right.
So I ended up, finding something that was what I had been looking for, this whole time.
Word.
And it was training alongside, one of the best trainers in the country for hockey training. Mm-hmm. His name was Ben Prentice, down in Darien when he was there. Now they're in, Stanford. But it was like, oh my God. And I looked at his client list, and I'm like, these are all the guys I was with when I was at Yale.
Yeah. So
I'm texting him. I'm like, dude, get me in this place.
Right.
So I reached out. I was like, hey, I'm a strength coach by trade. I'm in the area. Would you mind if I train with you this summer? He's like, email me back. He's like, dude, we have a position. Come on down, and we'll see where it goes. Mm-hmm. And that is what led me to this today. So It was like the top 30 NHL guys in the country, excluding some of them because they train in other places, but guys from the Rangers, LA Kings, Buffalo Sabres, Blue Jackets, all these guys under one roof. And basically, again, I came in, and he's like, you know what, bud? Here's the sheet. Figure it out, and you're with me. So if you screw up, get the hell out. So again, it was another trial by fire experience. And
like that.
What I was talking to you about earlier was a lot of the things in strength conditioning are the same. It's just they have different names.
Right.
So I had been doing most of the stuff. So it was just getting, used to that different terminology that they use as opposed to what I was using. And once I figured that out, best summer of my life. It was hard work. And let me tell you, it was hard work. Getting up at 4 a.m. every day during the summer to drive an hour
to Darien.
And if you missed by 1 minute on your clock, you sat in traffic for another hour.
Yeah,
so it was like, oh my God, I almost made it.
Right.
So it was like, that right there was well worth it in itself. Just training alongside those guys, making the connections, seeing what it took to be a real professional athlete. It was like, oh my God.
And almost kind of learning how to be a professional coach, right? Like you're dealing with big time. It's a different story now.
Yeah, true. Training the best of the best.
It is not like anything anyone else I think can ever just say, unless you train professional athletes, because these guys are making contracts, upwards of 20, 30, 40 million dollars. And they're coming to you. They're like, okay, you're in charge of my body for the summer. And if you screw it up, I'm going to tell everyone you suck.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, oh my God. So it was
awesome.
You're like, wow, no pressure at all.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, okay. But so after that, I had hit a peak, and I'm sure you guys go through that as well, where you're like, I have the tool set now to go out on my own, and there's no way I should be making, peanuts for all the work that I'm doing. So I said, what can I do to make this happen?
Right.
And this place came around, and the owner was like, hey, I got this gym. It's been empty. If you want it, you got it. I walked in. I said, I can make it work. And then from there, I just started talking to everybody. I was his nephew, and I had trained him at my last place. And I was like, he was one of my first guys. He's like, hey, I'm going to get you like 5 guys. Cool. And then from there, it just spread. So then I had a lot of connects, through, high school and college and all these things. And I was like, hey, I finally went out on my own, and people were receptive to the idea. And we're like, hey, you're doing your thing? Like, we're going to come. And so far, so good in that regard. And
cool.
We have, I like I said, I do primarily hockey guys, but we have football, we have baseball, we have some soccer. We're sprinkled in all over the place. And we don't necessarily want to just say that we're just hockey. So that's why there's no like Pulaski hockey training. It's just Pulaski strength, because why limit yourself in a field where with limitless possibilities.
Right.
And I know, like, we were talking about it earlier before we came on, and it was like, we're oversaturated as strength coaches, and you got to find your niche. So why limit the niche? Why can't you just be like the guy that everybody goes to?
Right.
And then we created this whole mall concept that we were talking about with you earlier, with like getting the best that we can find under one culminating roof of being like, okay, like, you need somebody awesome, like Steve's awesome at CrossFit.
Right.
We're gonna do some CrossFit. And Nick's great at, speed stuff. We're gonna do speed, and I'm good at this. And you can send them to anybody, and that's that's how you can do it and be successful. So it was like, that's where we want to go as like as a company or a group.
I got you. All right, that's perfect. We're gonna take a break, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about what you actually do.
Oh my God,
with your athletes.
So many things.
Save it, because we got the second half coming up. We'll be right back.
Want more of the Strength Students podcast? Go check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Also, make sure you leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and on Stitcher. Stitcher, I just met her. Okay.
Welcome back to the Strength Students podcast. We are here with our guest, Pete fucking Pulaski. What's up, brother?
What is up? Ready to tear down this second half here.
Yeah. So what we're going to talk about is training athletes, high school athletes in particular. That's mostly your forte. But we're just going to talk about kind of what you do with them. We got into some in-depth combos before about training and what you should do with people, and everyone has their system, or like, this is what they should be doing. This is what these kids should be doing. And, of course, dealing with, we love the parents. They're good people, but they have a certain outline of what they want to do, and it's hard to explain. But anyways, when you first get an athlete, so what are you doing with? You mostly have groups, correct?
Yes, I do a lot of groups. I think, we want to do individuals, but groups for high school athletes is just a little bit more. You could get a little bit more in depth with it too, but at the same time, it allows for the maximum amount of people to be here at one time. Like you said, dealing with parents is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But when a kid first comes in, we kind of assess them as a group. So it's, I might have, my buddy Ricky who works here, put him through like a dynamic. Mm-hmm. But that time, I'm assessing each kid. I'm walking behind the group. I'm looking at the way that their gait is. I'm looking at the way that they stretch. If they can't touch their toes, why? And we're doing, just a basic lunge and lateral lunge and almost like a kind of like a flamingo-esque type stuff. You look at hamstring, glutes, ankles, body weight squats. And people can get into depth. There's the FMS. There's all kinds of different systems that people can run. And it's like, well, he went 45 degrees instead of 50 degrees, and he had like a this and that. Kids are kids. They're going to develop relatively early those like bad habits.
Right.
And my philosophy is it's because they sit all damn day. They literally sit in a desk all day. And they slouch, and they just are all in their text, their phones, and they're all in this like hunched over Quasimodo position.
Right.
So what are you seeing? It's like they relatively all have the same problems. It's, a lot of forward lean, a lot of tightness in their chests. Their abs are tight, and they're all quad dominant, no hamstrings. They don't know how to squeeze their butts, and pull themselves into an upright position. They're, so that's basically what we're seeing. So again, I'm looking at them and I'm saying, okay, well, this lineman or, this, person, this athlete, has really, really weak glutes. And we were talking about it, how cliche as it is, everyone's doing the band stuff and, glute meads and, all this stuff, band walking and band squats and all this crap. But that's because because that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of kids, 15, 16, 17. When we were 15, 16, 17, we didn't even know what an injury was.
Yeah.
These kids are complaining, my back hurts.
Right.
My leg, my hips are bothering me.
Right.
I mean, we were picking shit up and, throwing it around, banging each other at practice. And we never even had an injury.
Banged each other after practice, too.
I knew you guys were going to go there. I
couldn't let that one
I know.
go.
We try to be mature. We're really trying to grow
opened
up.
that barn door. You slipped. I opened the barn door. You slipped right in the back.
Oh, boy.
But yes.
But I know what you mean. It's and I think the mistake is made where a lot of kids kind of they see things in like we did. I know I did. You see a thing in a magazine like, oh, this dude's back squatting 600. I'm going to try to do that. But I've never, at that point, you're 15, you've never goblet squatted before. And you hand them a 30-pound dumbbell and they try to do a goblet squat with it and it looks terrible. So I think finding the right, how do you find, how am I going to phrase this the right way? Do you split up the kids based on what they can do or what they can't do? Like older kids, technically, like usually are a little bit better. They can move a little bit better and they can lift heavier. And the younger kids kind of have to work on some basic skills. Or do you find it's all over?
In theory, you would think it would work that way. But because a lot of these schools, especially the ones that I deal with, don't have strength coaches, or they do, and it's kind of like, a kid right out of college that's, just there to kind of like monitor the whole situation. You find that some of the younger kids respond so much better than the older kids because the older kids have developed such bad tendencies that they're a complete shit show. And these younger kids, you're like, okay, perform a squat.
Right.
And they're so young, they're like, and malleable at that time. They're like, all right, no problem. Sit around down. So what? They're using the bar.
Right.
But you got the kid, the older kids, they're like, dude, I squatted like 365. I'm like, okay, cool. Like that's awesome. Let me see it. And they're like, oh my, like
halfway,
the guy, their partner, spotting partner, is basically doing the work. I mean, he's about to have a goddamn brain aneurysm.
Right.
He's like, he's doing all the work, and I'm going, who the hell told you that was a good, good squat? Right. Well, I work with this coach or this person, or at the gym, and I was at whatever. Planet Fitness or whatever, and that's what I do. I'm like, well, this is wrong. So going back to your question, it's like you kind of see that whole, everybody is like different, but all kind of the same. And you have to kind of go into it and be like, okay, well, you just break them up based on, can they move?
Right.
We're taking these kids in the first day. It's like, okay, let's do like you said, goblet squats. I mean, that's a prime indicator of like an evaluation.
Yeah.
Can you keep the dumbbell close to your chest?
Can you keep upright torso?
Can you sit down? Do you have the ankle mobility? And what you're seeing, especially with my hockey guys, is there's a lack of ankle mobility. Again, with the shoes and everything and what we're doing today in today's society, you're seeing all these kids they want to just fall forward.
Yeah.
I want to go forward. I mean, like you said, when we were doing it, we were looking at the magazines.
Right.
And that's my philosophy. I'm like, dude, I did everything wrong. I had a 650-pound squat, and I did everything wrong. Imagine if I actually learned something. Yeah. Imagine if I actually gave two poops about, any of this crap.
Right.
And had somebody who could tell me something that was not like, keep going.
Right. And to save you from injury down the road.
So wrong in what regard? Like, just getting more of a better definition of what we mean by that squat is wrong or that deadlift is wrong, meaning like not as efficient, like what do you mean? What do we mean when we're saying that? You know what I mean?
So as coaches, I mean, you guys coach as well, and you guys are strength and conditioning specialists, and when you look at someone, and there are so many different techniques. I mean, we were talking about it earlier, be like just variations in squat based on who you talk to. But when you say just wrong or bad, is the fact that movement over a long period of time is going to be detrimental to their sport. It's going to hurt them or hinder their performance as opposed to help it.
Word.
Now, if you take a kid and he's just stiff and he rounds his back a little bit, but he's always rounded his back. That's kind of his mechanism. His lever advantage is to have a little bit of round. And he has never been hurt. Why change it? But if a kid is, complaining like, oh, my back hurts, this hurts, and he looks like a complete jackass when he's doing it, it's like, you're wrong. We have to correct this and make it better. So it's all individualized basis. So when we say it's, a bad squat or a wrong squat, it's just the fact that what they're doing is going to be detrimental, again, to their performance on the field or the ice or the court. It's not firing the appropriate muscles at the right time to help them.
And that's what you got to remember, too, like, you're not training powerlifters. You're not training. I mean, they have a sport to play. So, like, this is just to complement the sport.
Exactly.
And,
in this setting, again, not being powerlifters, not being bodybuilders, not doing it for aesthetics or whatever, it is for longevity on the field or court or whatever. It's their, parent or guardian or coach or whoever sending them here so that their injuries are decreased over the long haul so that they can perform and overall go to where they want to go. Some of these kids have aspirations of, going to college or, I trained some college guys, go play in the pros. And, this year I might actually get a few, pro guys that just got signed and, they're going to be like, have a career, So it's like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel with these guys. They're already really good athletes. You just have to keep them
healthy,
from blowing out, anything that could blow out, during their sport.
Yeah.
And that's what we see is like, how do we keep the kids on the field? It's an alarming, statistic how many of these kids are blowing, their backs out, ACLs. I mean, they're saying that 5% of women athletes tear their ACL. Now, if you take the whole giant, 5% is a large majority.
A lot of people.
I mean, it's like almost like an epidemic. But like we're saying, we are the little microcosms of their career to help them stay on the field longer.
Especially females, they're generally at an anatomical disadvantage as far as just movement and strength and cutting on a field. And especially if you look at an athlete, right? You look at a woman's soccer player. When she's young, she's playing youth soccer, doesn't really apply. She hasn't formed yet, right? Then they start getting older, right? Women start getting older. Now the hips start to get wide. Those femurs start to dive in. Now all of a sudden they're having problems.
Yeah,
and that's where all like the ACLs and stuff, like with soccer, right?
Yeah,
you wear cleats, your foot's stuck in the ground, your hip goes the other way, boom, there goes your ACL.
And if your femur's already pointing in, you're going to have a little bit of valgus knee position. You're going to have hip drop. You're going to have weak glute medius. And it's cliche as it sounds. Your butt is weak. The girls just sometimes don't know how to pivot and turn without that happening, and it there it goes, boom, it's done.
Well, and it's tough though because a female's body at one point in her life changes so fucking much. Like guys, like okay, we get taller, but our hips don't get wider. You know what I mean? Like women go from like A to B. We go from like A to like A1. Women go from like A to B, and it's like
they're like 0 to 100 real quick.
That's a lot. That's different for all of a sudden your neurological patterns are like, oh shit, like, oh I still need to move like this, but wait, my knee's going this way now. Oh, goodbye ACL. it's like that's crazy.
And and going back to how we group our athletes, when we work with women's athlete, it's almost different. You're working on all those things that you think could be the catalyst for those injuries, as opposed to a guy where it's like, me dude, me full testosterone, like go lift shit over your head. It's like these girls are coming to you and you're like, okay, you guys are playing sports that require you to do a lot of cutting. Let's work on that stability, that even like simple things like the ankle stability, the lower backs. Some girls are playing, field hockey or soccer or whatever. Let's work on these like little things that we think that we can draw on, even running form. Most people, they don't look at a girl and they say, oh, wow, like her knees, when she lands, her little hip is going to pop down. Well, that hip drop is already indicating to you that as a strength coach that there's a possibility that this girl's going to hip drop and turn and just crumple. It's like So that's how we do it. Like girls, now that we're diving into it, is like a completely different thing. It's like a whole different realm of existence because, again, they don't have that testosterone. They don't have all those things going for them that
they're usually more
guy would.
Yeah, they're usually a little bit more flexible, a little bit more hypermobile in some things. And also there's a stigma of like girls I don't want to lift. I don't want to get big. There's always that too.
Oh God!
But for an athlete, you're like, no, you need to get strong because your body is growing at and what's happening to your body. Everyone grows, but especially females. Like what's going on with your body it's rough.
Yeah.
So why not be strong? But they think, oh, I don't want to do that. But you have to. You absolutely have to.
And I think that goes back to that's the world in which they see. It's they don't it to them muscles is unattractive, and there's some girls, obviously there's everyone's different, and they're like, dude, I want to be the strongest girl ever. But for the majority, I think we can say that that's not aesthetically pleasing to them, so they're like, yo, I'm not. And you're like trying to beat it in their head like over and over. You're like, no. Unless you eat like 10,000 calories and take, a lot of supplements
supplements.
Exactly. That some dudes take. You're not going to get like that. But you can, again, get strong and perform really well at your craft and not hurt yourself.
Well, you could, as a female, you could have genetic precursors too. Like if you look at a fucking weight, you're just gonna like. You're just you're not a hard gainer. What would be the opposite of a hard gainer?
That's a good question.
Soft gainer?
Whatever. Yeah. Like, you lift one weight and all of a sudden your fucking arms are... Like, that could happen. But for the most part, with females, not the case.
I mean, granted...
Just physiologically.
A long time ago, for example, dated a girl that was just...
You dated a girl?
Yeah, believe it or
not. A long time ago.
Yeah,
not the case anymore.
God, Steve. Don't look at me like that. But yeah, no, she just genetically was gifted to be strong as all hell. I mean, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, in high school, she was benching like 145. I'm going, is this possible? Like,
it's impressive. Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Thick. Just genetically, like, just that was her thing, just being strong as an ox.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, like, is this normal? Like, girls supposed to be like squatting like 300 pounds? Like, no, but like, you're right. So it is, so widespread across the board. But, again, they see the one girl in high school that's like, oh, jacked. And they're like, hell no, am I going to be like that? Like, no, nobody likes that person.
Yeah.
So.
It's crazy. Everyone's different, man. Everybody's different. But one thing I want to get into is like actual programming. Like, how do you kind of... Like, say, come in, let's go, as soon as your guys come in, they probably do dynamic warm-up, and then from there, where do you usually take them?
So, actually, what we do, some guys like to foam roll a little bit extra, so I'll give them, like, 10 minutes, to loosen up. They're coming from school or whatever.
They're sitting all day at a desk,
I'm like, listen, guys, goof around for a hot minute, foam roll, chit-chat, and then we're going to get serious. So then, again, we go into, like, a dynamic. We're just touching on everything possible that we can go into. Sometimes on a day where maybe we're going to do like a more of a dynamic speed day, I might have some extra stretching, maybe, something that's going to really make them a little bit more flexible, even like to the point of we're doing like ankle pops or we're doing some one-legged bounds, some skaters, some speed stuff to just kind of get the neurological, just bang it off, just pop, pop, pop. But when I program, I always think of how can I make them stronger over the long period of time? And some of the stuff is like the, going with tempo, using the Charles Poliquin system. A lot of stuff is I learned from, my internships over time. And, for these guys, it's like, how can we build, kind of a linear type growth? And I break it up into 4 phases. So I always think of my first phase as absolute strength. All right. How can we get super strong in like 4 or 5 weeks?
Right.
Load the bar.
Right.
Let's start. Get them to a point where it's like, okay, this is after we've already looked at them. This is not just like what day one, like, oh, let's squat as much as we can.
Right.
But it's like, once that phase hits, it's like, okay, let's start loading this. We're going to go into like, our maybe 6 is maybe max, and our accessory work is like still 8 to 10. But it's like, okay, well, let's load the bars up. And then after that 4th week, we're going to start including more of a dynamic feature. So now we're getting the bands out. We're going to start doing different timings with the eccentric lowering. And we're going to start using the bands and different variations to increase speed and velocity. Then into the next phase, our 3rd phase is now we combined them, and now I teach more of the Olympic lifting. So now we're really getting into like barbell snatch and clean and press and jerks, and using the bands too. And sometimes we set up with the bands doing cleans. So, now you're getting different, variations and loads, and the bar's pulling you down. You got to sit under it.
Teaches them to drop under the bar.
Exactly.
You see Louis Simmons does that.
Yeah.
That's like he always, every time he has an Olympic weightlifter, he's like, all right, you're going to clean against bands.
Exactly. I mean, they're like, yeah, what? And, but then again, you go and you look at hook grip, and you got a guy from Turkey or some stuff, and he's like, 300 pounds, and he's like, just did 540. You're just like, did he use bands? Like, he just is a beast. It's like crazy. Right. But then our last phase is what we want to do is most of the time our fourth phase correlates to the start of their seasons, or, whether it's going to be spring ball or whatever they have you. But
classic.
Yeah, we're going into the season. Now, we've already done all our hard lifting. Now we're trying to move everything as fast as we can. The bars have to be flying. So we don't have Tendo systems here, which I know I wish eventually I would love to get, because
like $1,500 a piece.
Yeah, literally. And you get and if you get the little tripod thingy to judge over a long period of time, it's like, let's add another 2,000.
Right. But exactly.
So we kind of use using that Brian Mann theory, speed, strength versus strength, speed, and everything. Yep. And we're trying to move that bar as fast as we possibly can. So now we're taking it and we're going probably between, I would say 80, 85, maybe even 90, percent. But we're trying to move that as fast as possible. We're just ripping it.
Mad fast.
And then we're incorporating all that dynamic stuff. And then we're like, boom, we're into the season. We're going to decrease our injuries. We're moving as fast as we possibly can, and we're going to rip some shit up. So that's kind of where we go. And I program basically all my teams that way, unless it's a really long, drawn-out thing. Like, for instance, my football program right now, we've incorporated different variations of CrossFit. And people will be like, oh, my God, why CrossFit? No.
Dude, what are you fucking kidding me?
Dude, oh, my God.
CrossFit, dude, what?
Okay, so
right, guys,
going
Pull
back.
it down.
Yeah, going back. And I, I'm not going to say I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but, CrossFit is different modalities. You're just getting into different things, gymnastics, you get into Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, bodybuilding. You're just smashing all together. And they called it this CrossFit because it's it's a cross fitness.
Right.
CrossFit.
Right.
But, so we're utilizing different concepts with that. We're doing some, circuits and things. We're doing wall balls. We're doing, thrusters. We're doing doing all kinds. AMRAPs. What's wrong with a goddamn AMRAP? Because we have such a long period of time where we can get that metabolic conditioning, through these different types of things that are already established and have a better outcome. So that's kind of how I program. It depends on the duration of time that we have. Most of my guys, especially in the summer, is the four phase, and then they're into their season and they're kind of doing their thing.
Word. Just kind of a accumulation of what we've been talking about. So, and going back to a little what we were talking about before the programming, but mixed into with that. So you have, so you get this athlete, right, who's been so affected by shitty motor patterns and squat patterns and deadlift patterns and technique patterns from their youth. During their youth, they weren't taught the right things and they read the wrong shit just like we all did. Now they're, coming out of puberty or in the height of puberty, and they come to you with all these shitty patterns. Squatting inefficiently, deadlifting inefficiently, just moving inefficiently. How do you now fix that or try to fix that?
So in a group setting, we pull them aside. One-on-one, we break it all the way down.
Okay, so you break them. Okay, so now you have that individual. What are you doing to fix all that shit?
So say they have really cruddy squats. Horrible. It's just they're leaned over. They're just all in on themselves. They got just tightnesses and things. I'm going to break them down into how their body works. If they have a lot of forward lean, maybe it's just because they bench too dang much and their upper back's so tight that they just can't get into this position to roll their hips underneath them to even push through their glutes. I start them with a different variation of box squat or a goblet squat, like Nick had mentioned earlier. But I basically go down the line.
Right.
Let's start high and get into a perfect position. Mm-hmm. And every few, reps or even days, because sometimes you can't fix it all in one spot.
No, yeah.
We take a plate away, and then eventually we go all the way down. And the same is when I add correctives. So maybe I'm doing like a single leg pistol squat, to just help them learn to kind of activate that hamstring, pull themselves down. Or I'm going to do one-legged, RDLs with a foam roller to kind of start stretching that out, getting the balance. Or I'm going to do ankle stuff. I might put some bands out and be like, okay, I'm going to put a band behind your ankles, and I'm going to have you squat because your ankles stink and you have no flexibility in your ankles and you're stuck. So now, if I can see those things, I can start correcting them. Or maybe they're just so hamstring dominated. Maybe they're not a quad dominant. We always think like, oh, they must be quad dominant. No, maybe I'm going to elevate your feet because you have poor ankle mobility. And now you're going full depth squats. Now you're getting your hamstrings and your glutes to activate. So it's just breaking it down. And it's all individual based. I wish there was like something I could say, oh my God, like the universal thing.
Sure.
We all wish for that magic pill.
We're all so uniquely different that you have to like break it down, especially when you have those athletes. And when they're young, they're all over the place. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, like this. Shit.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy how poor training or poor or lack of training in your youth can lead to such a body that's just so, I don't want to say bad or wrong, but just inefficient at moving.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Which could eventually, like you were saying before, like lead to injury or just lead to not reaching that potential performance that you could.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, you just break everyone down to their grassroots.
Well, it sounds like, and everyone's different, but it sounds like for the most part, like first thing you do is like kind of take away range of motion, right? So what you were saying with the plates, right? All right, your squat, you're not going to squat as low as usual. Let's go a little higher, just see where we're at. And then you take a little away. So it sounds like you start with range of motion, and then from there you kind of add correctives as well.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'll elaborate even more with that. Is like we're going to start utilizing range of motion. All right, we're going to start working mobility, flexibility. So obviously, mobility is flexibility through range of motion. So, are you mobile? And then from there, I create my own little system to help those athletes. I'll be like, okay, we're going to sit in a third world squat for 2 minutes. Start activating those muscles.
That's a fucked up name for that.
Yeah, it's like you're just like shitting in a hole.
Yeah, but I mean, hey,
and that's kind of, so we take that and we go all the way down, and we just we incorporate all three. Maybe we do Duff and warm up. Maybe we're doing some like airplanes and all. Maybe that's our whole workout. I'm not going to call myself like FRC by any means. Like I'm not functional range conditioning. I'm not that cool.
Yeah. Right.
But we're taking concepts and we're just trying to open them up, and then we limit the range of motion because right now that's all they can handle. And maybe they're so dang flexible that their range of motion's great, but they're so like all over the place.
Yeah,
maybe I take some bands and I put them around their knees and I go, okay, this whole time you're pressing out on the bands. Just press out. Just keep going and develop some strength there. But we take our time. I mean, these kids, they have time. It's the outside factors that are telling them you need to go now.
Yeah.
Like, no, you did the now.
My kid has basketball in 2 months, needs to get faster. It's like, well,
we need to take time to do correctives. And no. Basketball tomorrow. No, well.
So, he did it.
Why can't my kid dunk? Well, he's 5'8". He's white.
And that's
we're in Connecticut.
And honestly, believe it or not, I didn't think that existed in the world until I decided to open up my own place. And you hear some of this stuff, and you're like, I don't think that you quite understand that your kid needs a lot of work. Some kids need a lot of work.
Well, I'm sorry to cut you off, but we talked to Jim Ronay about that. He said he's turned people down because the kid has needed so much work, but the parent was like, no, I don't care about all that. Just make them better. He's like, dude, you don't understand. They need work in order to get better. And he's turned like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not going to train your kid.
And Jim's resume alone should be like, you should listen to this dude.
Yeah.
He's a PT.
And
he's an ATC. He's got it all.
Hey, and listen, like that guy is super smart. I've known him and his whole family for a long time.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's brilliant with what he does. If he's turning people away, I mean, for God's sakes, I'll take anybody, but still, it's like, you're like
anyone, Pulaski strength, just show up.
I don't care. What do you want to do? But it's like, what? Like, you can't do a body weight squat. How are you gonna dunk a how you gonna dunk a basketball? Like,
right.
It's not gonna happen.
I know.
So again, going back to your question, we really just break it all the way down. You just take it all the way to the bottom. And I mean, I'm not going to bore everybody. Oh, well, we do this certain exercise and this certain exercise.
Right.
And
We know it,
I mean, everyone who was listening to this probably has a general idea of what the hell I'm talking about. And they're going to be like, wow, that guy's just trying to be really smart, and I'm not smart. So we're not going to go into that.
Right.
So either take a break or done. Do you have anything else?
I have one last question I want to ask Pete.
So well, we're going to lose the feed, so let's take another quick break.
Let's take another quick break.
Break, and we'll be back in a couple minutes.
Yes.
2 breaks.
Want more of the Strength Students podcast? Go check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Also, make sure you leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and on Stitcher. Stitcher, I just met her. All right, we're good to go.
Final question here.
We're back.
We're back.
Part 3
for the third time.
It's like Back to the Future, dude. Three parts.
Yeah,
right.
we're in the Wild West now.
We're in the Wild West.
Is that what the third one was?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
See, Pete knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we're
Give me
there.
a fucking give me
I
something.
have no fucking idea. All right. Anyways, last question for you, Pete. I wanted to ask you, what would be your advice? Because I know we look back at our athletic
Oh, word,
careers.
that's what I was going to ask. Nice. Okay, cool.
What would be your advice to younger athletes? Like, what would you say? I know I wish, like we were just talking off camera here about how we wish someone was just like, you know what? I just want you to do a body weight squat and push-ups like 3 days a week, a couple sets of 10. Like, I wish someone just told me that when I was like 12, and I feel like I would have had a better shot at stuff. But
yeah, absolutely. I guess my advice to any youth athlete would be to start small and end big. So, and I'm just going to sum that all up is, like you said, there's so much information out there that we never had. Find a professional or someone that is at least somewhat knowledgeable that can say, okay, a basic routine would be all body weight. Go into work on your flexibility, mobility. And you don't have to even use those words. Be like, hey, again, do 25 body weight squats, do 25 push-ups, do 25 pull-ups, do a handstand. And that sounds crazy, but when you look at gymnastics, these kids are going into handstands and they're doing flips and things. And gymnasts are the best athletes around. Give them any sport, they're probably going to be awesome at it because they're already so body weight oriented. It's all about the body weight. I didn't know that. Well, nobody knew that. It was like, pick weights up, destroy your body.
right.
But again, start small. Do the little things. Progress in a linear path. If you do a 135-pound bench press and you did it for 10 reps, add 5 pounds.
Right.
Try to get 10 the next time you bench.
Right. Don't try to be a hero every time.
And continue to create a formula. Understand the rep range. Strength, 1 to 5, and power and all this stuff, and endurance, and just work on it constantly over and over. There's no reason, and I mean, I'm sure you can attest to this, a guy that can use his body weight is sometimes a lot stronger than the guy who lifts the weights all the time because he knows how to handle his body.
Dude, I've seen it at college. There were gymnasts that they've been gymnasts their whole life, male gymnasts, and they got on the bench press for the first time ever, and they benched 275. They weigh 160.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I've never benched before, and you're like, holy crap.
Yeah, they're doing the iron cross, and we're over here like trying to squat.
Dude, 100-pound dumbbells.
Yeah, dude,
It's
it
like,
was awesome.
Put me on rings. I'm like,
yeah, all over the place,
having a seizure.
But that's the little things that youth athletes can do to make themselves better. Literally use some bands. Don't be afraid to use the rings. I think rings are super important in the gym. I mean, I wish I had them here, but we have a little of a ghetto system, so we're actually gonna start drilling them into the wall for the summer, up in the roof. But utilizing all those body weight activities that create instability, and once you're real stable, go to the weights and go work on range of motion, work on your depth, work on keeping your back tight, work on, keeping your wrists tight, work on coming full reps.
Right.
Don't cheat. Like you said, it's not about being a hero day one. Those guys who consistently work at it, they're the ones, look at Westside Barbell. They tell them, listen, we're going to just increase, whether it's the reps or the weight, and we're just going to keep going.
Right.
They got kids benching, 400 pounds.
I know.
I mean, I just saw a kid the other day, the 42-inch or 43-inch, some ridiculous vertical, box squatted like 600 pounds. He's like 17.
Jesus.
I mean, are you kidding me? So that's a perfect example of
Getting
go
young,
small and don't worry about the outside factors. If you're good at your sport and you practice your sport, you're going to be better at your sport. Take the same approach to your workouts. Make progressions every day, and you'll be better. That's all you have to do.
Word.
Perfect. Steven, you have anything?
That's it, man. I think that was great. It's good to see you, dude.
It's nice to see
It's
you.
good to have you on.
Pete, plug your where can people find you? Social media?
Oh, yes, the fun stuff. So on Facebook, we are Pulaski Strength LLC. Social media-wise, in the Instagram world, it is Pulaski Strength.
Nice.
Pulaski_strength.
Okay,
We're
all right,
official.
all right.
Personal Instagram is PDP54_hockey training.
It's the longest fucking Instagram name ever.
Listen, I'm trying to be unique. All right?
Just like artist formerly known as Prince. Just put like one capital P. At P.
Oh my God, that's so smart.
You're welcome.
R.I.P. Prince.
obviously.
And all right, man. That's pretty much it. Plug our own shit. Well, that's in the break. We don't really need to plug our own shit, do we?
We're gonna plug a lot of.
Well,
things
yeah.
in.
Make sure you follow us, Strength Students Podcast, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Go to our page, subscribe to that. A lot of good stuff coming there.
Yeah, we have brand new stuff coming on YouTube, so
Yeah.
check that shit out.
Yeah, man. Make sure you leave a 5-star review on iTunes and whatever it is that the Stitcher folks do.
We
if
still
they leave
haven't
reviews, I don't
looked.
know. But yeah, go ahead, leave some comments. Got our first troll the other day. We're not going to go into it specifically,
What
but
the hell is a troll?
We'll tell you after.
Oh,
Yeah, we'll tell you.
I thought you just found those under a bridge.
No,
Sorry.
yeah, this one was probably under a bridge, but yeah,
It
so
was
we
hilarious.
fucking made it, dude. We got a fucking troll.
we did it.
Yes.
All right. We'll see you guys. Bye.
Yeah, we'll see you.